Okay, so we are going to discuss about how we make use of SQLite to connect to basically database, insert record, retrieve records, and all those things. Now, before we jump into programming, let us try out few concept around SQLite or some theoretical concept we shall discuss around SQLite. So, just one moment. Okay, so let's look at some theory. So basically, SQLite is a inbuilt database which is available to you as a part of installation of Python, which you install on your machines, right? Now, it's a relational database. Relational meaning that you can have relation between different tables, parent-child relationship, right? Now, to access a database, Python needs a database module, right? Like we have different modules, like there was a time module, there was a thread module, right? We have multiple modules. We will look at more modules in upcoming sessions, but it needs a database module, right? So Python database module that conforms to Python database API specification can be used to access relational database from Python. Now, what does it mean? It means that this module which we are going to make use of, it has some APIs, okay, and those APIs are used to connect to the corresponding database which we are going to make use of. Right now, it is documented in PEP 249. You can Google this. So these are specifications. What is meant by that is that, let's say, uh, uh, it means that suppose we are making use of SQLite, we could be making use of Oracle, MySQL, and so many database, PostgreSQL, right? There are so many of them. Now, any vendor like Oracle, MySQL, who's providing a database, right? If anybody of them is providing a database, then in that case they have to comply with that specification so that it can be used with Python, right? Yes, sort of a standard or a guidelines to be followed. Okay, so now Python database API, which we are going to discuss, support a wide range of database servers like GetFly, SQLite 3. This is the one which we are going to focus on. Then MSQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL is there. Then Microsoft SQL is there, Informix is there. So these are some of the databases available, right? Now, uh, when you are making use of a database like MySQL, that will have a host name, port name, right, username and password, right? So in such a case, you might want to, when you're trying to establish a connection with database, what do is you specify the credentials of where the database is running, right? What is the port it is running on, what is the username, and what is the password, right? Now, once this, if successful connection is established, if successful a connection object which is con is returned, right? We will look at all of this with a program, don't worry. Okay, and then once you have connection, you can perform various operations of like closing the connection, committing the transaction, rolling back a transaction, closing a cursor or getting a cursor, right? So these are some of the operations we can perform as a part of communication with database. So the most important step, or the first step that you have to do as a part of connection to database is that, or communication with the database, is that you have to obtain connection on that, what you say, you have to obtain connection on that particular database, and then subsequently you can perform your required operations, right? Now, uh, now there is something called cursor as well. Cursor is basically responsible for doing all the operations with respect to retrieving record from the database, right? So what is a cursor? An instance CUR of a cursor has number of standard methods. Now this cursor is got to do with uh, retrieving of record from the databases, like fetching a record, executing a query, and all those things. Okay, so we shall look at it with some examples, and it will become very clear in some time. Now, as I said, we will be focusing on SQLite DB, right? This is what we are going to focus on. Now, generally, if you have to install any database, what you need to do is that you end up installing it and getting its driver and all that, right? But in case of SQLDB, it is not required to install this database separately, as it is being shipped by default along with Python version 2.5x, right? So since we are on Python 3x, we do not need to do the installation of this particular database, right? Then SQLite, it is easy to use database engine. It is very fast and lightweight, and the entire database is stored in a single disk file. We will see that in some time. Okay, a file like this gets created for you with an extension db. Okay, so this is what is meant by it is stored in a single file. Then Python standard libraries includes a module SQLite, right? So this is the module which we are going to make use of to work with this particular database by importing SQLite 3. Fine. Then this module is an SQL interface compliant with DB API 2.0 specification, the one which I was talking about here a little while earlier, right? So this module complies with this specification, and therefore it can talk to the all available databases which are available in the industry, which is compatible with Python. Okay, so having said that, let's now try to start with some programming. So I will bring up my PyCharm. Okay, let me create a copy of this, and let me go ahead and delete everything that is inside here. Okay, now I'll also go ahead and delete my databases here. Fine. So let me delete this. Okay, so let's come back and let's connect to our database. So as a part of talking to database or communicating with database, the first step is that you have to connect to it, and then subsequently you can do further operations, right? So what I am going to do is, as I told you a little while earlier when we were going through the theory, is that you need to import this SQLite 3, right? So that is the first thing I'm going to do. I'll say import SQLite 3, right? So I'll import this, and once I'm done with this import, then I'll say connection is equals to SQLite 3 dot connect, right? And I will choose connect, and inside I'm going to specify name of any database. So let's say I will call it python.db, right? Now, and now you will see that in this directory, which is com c2t db SQLite, I do not have any file with this name, right? Python.db. And after that, I'll just print connection establishpd success, right? So this is my connection established. Now I'll right click and I will run this program, and I will see, let's see what is the output. So the program is still running. Okay, so you will see the process finished with exit code 0, and it shows the output connection established successfully. And you can also see a file here called python.db, right? So what it means, or what it does, is that if you do, so this is the database file, right? Now what it means is that if the database is not already existing, it will create a database for you, right? If it is there, then it will use the existing one for you. Now, how to access the records in this? So you can go to your browser of your choice. Now, if you want to see the content of this particular DB, as of now, there is nothing inside that, right? I mean, I have just created the DB and it will not have anything because there is no table, no record. But in case you want to see the content, you can come here, and there is a plugin with Chrome and Firefox. You can say SQLite, SQL. Yeah, so this link I'll ping it to you on WhatsApp. If you open this link, fine, what you can do, you can drag and drop that file here and it will show you the content of that particular database, right? So I'm pinging this link to you. If you want, you can check it out by yourself. So what this link will do is that it will select star from that table. So currently in my case it has nothing. Okay, let me drag and drop the file here. So I will take it, I'll drop it here. Fine, so let's see it, that is reloading for me, right? And it's processing the file, and let's see what comes out. Currently there is nothing inside here. Okay, now I generally don't rely on this one, but this is a way I found one of the tool which I thought will be useful, so you can play around with it if you want to. Right now, having created the database, then now our next step is to basically create a table, right? So let me go to my PyCharm and we'll start with creating a table. So okay, here only we'll create a table. So now I have already okay, so let me say I will take this statement, I will not type the whole thing. Okay, now I have the connection already established, right? So here it is going to be conn dot execute, and this is my single line. If I want to put it, I can put it like this. Since it was in multiple line, there is three apostrophe sign, right? If you want to put it like this, this is also fine, but sometimes it might span multiple lines, right? Okay, so I'm saying connection dot execute of this, fine, and it will execute this particular statement whichever I'm giving in here, right? I could have said here uh, that say create table. If this is something you find comfortable, you can do it like this as well, right? It is a matter of your choice. Sometimes this is better. Okay, and inside this you can say create table and you can put it here right? And after that what I'm going to do is I'll print that table created success, right? Now why I'm displaying these statements, so that if in case there is a problem happening at any point, I would know where it failed, right? So now if I rerun this program, it will not create the database again for me, it will use the existing which is there, right? And then there is no need for this one because it is already I mean sorry, this we need connection established has to be done. Then I'm going to create table and I will have the table created as this table created successfully printed, right? So let me run this program and let's see what happens. I'll right click and run. So table created successfully, fine. So far we have created database with the name python.db, and in that I have created a table. Okay, so I'm sharing this code with you, please try it out. Okay, so now let's understand this program a little bit more. Now truly speaking, I should have created date as a date object, this trans as a text object, and quantity as a maybe a integer or something. But to keep it simple, like for example, price is real, quantity is real. So real means that real numbers, right? So you could use any data type of your choice. There are multiple options available, right? Now, if I rerun this program, it will throw an error to me stating that the table already exists. In a particular database, I cannot have more than one table with the same name, right? So let's rerun this again and see. It says table stock already exists, right? But for this one, what it does, it if I run it first time, it will create the DB. If I rerun it, it will use the existing DB, right? So that's how we create basically our uh, database. We create table, and subsequent execution of that will cause problems in terms that the database is already, sorry, not database, but table is already existing, right? Yes, no. Okay, now a little while back we saw how to perform insert operation, right? So I'll create a copy of this one. Okay, now I'm not this much is something which we have already done, right? Connection, establishing of connection, we have already done, so I'm not going to get into that again. We have already covered that. Now what we have to do is, let's look at the previous program. So on the connection, you execute the statement which is create table, right? Now if I want to perform an insert operation, what I have to do is I have to create a cursor object. Okay, so if you will say con dot cursor, okay, I'll call it cur equal to the cursor object, and then I can say cur dot execute. Okay, and here I will define one more string, string insert whatever I want to insert, right? Now I'm going to copy this. I'll not type the whole thing, and I'll come back here, right? So here I'm stating that insert into, sorry, this is not string, I mean it is from Java. So here we say ins is the variable name, insert into stock, which is a table which we have already created, values this, right? So there has to be one-to-one mapping for each column which is there. So this was a text, this was a text, this was a text, this was real, and this was real, right? Yeah, so if now I'll create a cursor, and then uh, I will execute the statement, and after that I will also have to say, I'll also have to say connection dot commit. Why we do this, I will explain this with a proper example later on, but for now, if you do not commit, that the data will not be reflected in the database. Okay, and once you do that, the data is available in your this database which you created. So let me run this for you. So if I run it, okay, so we got our data inserted. I had to put this insert statement here. Now let me do one thing. Let me go back to this this one which I showed you. I'll drag, now that we have created a table and inserted a record, I will drag and drop it here. Okay, let's see. Can you see a record being created here? Right? So basically we have done a insert of a record in our database. Okay, so please try this out. Okay, so we have seen insert of a single record. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do insert of many records. Now I'm not going to type this program. This will unnecessarily spend a lot, waste a lot of time. But you will see, and now this is how our knowledge of basics of Python comes back. So this is a list, right? List of a tuple. This is one tuple. This is one tuple, and this is one tuple, right? So if you look carefully, this tuple is having fields same as the fields which I'm trying to insert in that stock table, right? So I have three here, 1 2 3. So let me make okay, so let me have this three tuple. I can create as many as I want to. And earlier I said cursor dot execute. Here I'm saying cursor dot execute many and insert into that uh, into stock values. These question marks correspond to each of the fields which have to go in, and I can put the list here directly, right? So because it is execute many and I'm passing a list, what it will do, it will go ahead and insert so many records in the table for me, right? So rather, or this is one way. Another way you could have done is you could have written a for loop here, right? But in that case you would have to change ins every time and set the values. I mean, there are different ways of doing it. So with this you can simply put all the data in a, what you say, in a list, or you could read it from a file, convert it into a tuple, put it in a list, and then execute this, right? So if, let's try to run this program and see what happens. So if I run this, insert into this, there is no such table as stock. So what is the name I gave? stoc, it was stocks. Okay, okay, I think, okay, I got what is the error. So here it was python.db, right?
Yeah.
So what it did is when it ran, it created sql.db, but during creation that table is not there, right? So I'll change it back to python.db. Let's run this program, and then I have just since it ran without any error, I'm assuming that record has got inserted. So let's go and verify that. So I will go back here. I'll drag and drop that file once again here, python.db, and let me drag and drop it here. So can you see the records generated here? So this is how you can basically put multiple records in the table, right? Okay, so now we have tried few programs of for what you say, inserting. Now let's also try to write some program to select the record from the table, right? So let's go to select one. We'll go one by one. So first select one record and then maybe select multiple records. Okay. So so till this far we have already seen that you connect to that database. I'll call it python.db, connection established, right? Now on the cursor we have already seen execute method, right? So I'll say cur as cursor dot execute, and then we know this statement, right? Select star from the table is stocks, right? This is something which we know of already. And then I will say cursor dot fetch one, so it will fetch me the one record only, and I can go ahead and print this for myself, print off this, right? So let's see what is the output I am getting. So right click, run. So it shows me only one record, and that comes out as a tuple, right? If you want to store it in a way, maybe a variable of your choice, and then you can iterate the content of that tuple and display it for yourself, right? So this is how we do fetch a single record. So can you please quickly try this out? Take the existing program, copy and paste it, and just add these two lines of code. That should be sufficient. So let's now same program. If I want to select multiple, okay, so let's say it is 0, select. Okay, now one is this particular program wherein I say select, where is that, select many, okay, this one. Okay, so if you will see here, what I'm doing is I'm saying select star from stocks. It returns what? A list which contains tuple, right? So a row will become one tuple, right? Yes, no. So if I run this program, it will show me records from that particular table as a individual tuple. Now we have already studied tuple, right? So if you want, you can iterate the contents within that tuple as well, right? So then for example, you have a row, so then for val in row, right? And then for val in row, print of val, right? So this is what you can do to access individual entries from that particular row that has got retrieved for you, right? So this is how we iterate the contents of a cursor which returns individual row, and then from that row, which is a tuple, you can define another loop and fetch the values. Now one important thing you have to take note of is that you have to know what data type it is. That is, you as a developer have to worry or take care of that. Yes, there is no mechanism, at least from the scripting point of view, that you can know whether it is a string or it is a integer or float or whatever it is, right? Okay, so I'll just share this code, please try it out. Okay, now this program which I'm going to show to you is got to do with what I should say, I'll call it a transaction DB. Okay, now what I am doing is, in this particular program, I will rename this also. It's a very simple program, only a concept needs to be understood here. So I created a new database and I did an insert, right? After I did an insert, I did not commit the transaction, or rather commit the connection, right? Like we have been doing always. Now after that, another piece of code opens the connection to same database and tries to fetch where the symbol is r head 2, same thing, or you can say select star also. Let's make it simpler for you, right? Yeah, and uh, without actually committing the data, I'm trying to fetch that data back, select star, right? So in that case, it will not give any record because it is not got committed or stored in the table for me, right? So let's run it. I hope the program is clear, right? So in this database, I'm creating a table. First of all, I need to create a table. So I will create table. I will take this, fine, and I will close this, and I will create so c dot execute, which is not c, it is connection dot execute, right? So on the connection, I executed and created a table. Then I created a cursor, and that on the cursor I said insert. Okay, then I again open a connection or establish connection with the database, and then I have another cursor, right? And then from that cursor, I'm trying to fetch star from stocks, right? In this particular table. So let's try to run it. So it did not return any result to me, right? When I say print fetch of 1, it said none. Yes. Now let me comment this line because I already have the table created, right? If I run it again, it will give an error. Okay, so okay, let me delete it. I don't actually need it also, so I delete it again. Now I insert it now, but this time I also commit it. Okay, and because I'm going to commit it, so the data will actually get stored in the database. Okay, so this is a concept of how data is committed in the database. I mean, you have to make sure to actually commit that particular transaction that you are trying to perform, right? So I'll right click and I'll try to run this program again. And so you can see the record which is retrieved as a result of this particular. I only have one record, so I said fetch one. Is it clear? So this is how basically, or why you should go ahead and always commit a connection when you are trying to perform an operation. I mean, if you are within the, see, if you are within the same connection, you could have said from this select from stock, you would still get it. But since they are two different connection object, 1 and 2, therefore one has to commit so that other can view that record. Is it clear? So I'll mail this program, please try it out.